Good evening. It's Tavara Krasniansky from Adai, and tonight is the first in a series of Shalom Bayis discussions with the title of Working as a Team. Adai has many resources, articles, recordings of past events, and much more on our website at adaiad.org. That's www.adaiad.org. That's all A's. adaiad.org. Tonight, we're talking about money and marriage, why and how to talk about finances in a productive way. Now, throughout this call, you can send us your questions at adaiad.org/ask-anonymous-question, and we'll be picking those up out throughout the call. So now, tonight, we'll be talking with Chaya Margolin, a financial coach working in the Dave Ramsey model with an adaptation for the Frum lifestyle. She works with clients, helping them make their budget and to start conversations about finances. So I'm really grateful that Chaya is able to join us and to share some of her work and wisdom with us. So with that, Chaya, can you share how you got into this?
Sure. About probably 5-6 years ago, my husband and I didn't know anything about money. And we'd spend money, and we'd, on a credit card, on a debit card, and not knowing if we had the money. I had no idea what our income was. And then I started getting nervous, and I wanted to know where all our money is going. Are we going to be able to retire with some money? Are we going to be able to pay for our children's weddings, their tuition? I realized that this conversation with my husband was a little uncomfortable. So we started doing research, and we started following the Dave Ramsey method. We got rid of all our debt really fast, following our budget. The budget was the tool to help us. We started building up our savings. We were able to buy a house. We were able to start saving and investing our money for our future and saving for priorities that we felt that we valued. After a while, I started helping family and friends who I saw, this is a huge help for them, and got all of them out of debt and were able to build up their lives. After that, I started doing it professionally. I took a Dave Ramsey course to become a coach, and here I am. This is what I do. I meet with clients, helping them with their budget and helping them with their finances.
It's such an important area as far as money. Everyone needs money to pay for things that they need to live, but for so many couples, it becomes an area of conflict, or they avoid it because they don't want conflict. There's so many differences about how to spend money and values and patterns from the family of origin. So it's an important conversation. So I'm glad that we're able to discuss that today and really bring some light into these different areas of how to have these discussions and how to set up some budget. So in preparation for this call, some people sent in some questions. So I think that we'll start with those questions, and throughout we can add some other points as well. So a first question in no order of priority is that my husband doesn't want to talk to me about money. He thinks it's his job to deal with it, but I'm worried.
That sounds a lot like my initial problem many years ago. The husband and the wife both need to understand that the conversation isn't completely about money. It's about what our goals are and what our values are for the future and for now. And we have to see, can we add these luxuries to our life? Luxuries like more expensive food and luxuries like, vacations, without compromising on our future. So it's not about the husband making the money and the husband deciding where the money goes, but it's about both of us together creating a happy, loving atmosphere in our home, and how to get to those big points and those semi-big points without compromising, the fun things that we want to have in our life.
Okay, so just to reiterate to the public, we are not talking about financial abuse in any way. So I just want to put that up front. We're talking about normal couples who have a difficulty around having conversations about money, which is very typical until people learn how to have these conversations. I just want to put that out front.
Right, and I just wanted to add that we have to understand that the first step when having this financial conversation with each other is we have to start off with the absolute basic necessities, which include, a home to live in, food to eat, and basic utilities. And then in our firm lifestyle, tuition for our children. After that, we have to think about our big priorities and big goals, like retirement, weddings, bar mitzvahs, the other important things, living a Jewish firm lifestyle. And then after that, if there's money to work with, we could do the luxuries, the new shaitel, a new car, vacations, restaurants. That's all. After we decide what our priorities and values are, we can fit in the extra luxuries and extra fun things that we can put in. But it's got to be a discussion between the two, husband and wife, and not just one of them making the rules.
Mm-hmm. And you said that some couples have different levels of priorities of what they would consider as a necessity and what they consider a luxury?
So certain luxuries some people might consider them necessities, but they shouldn't, because, necessities have to first be, the basics to live. Then necessity should be, making sure we have what we have for our future. And then after that, there could be some things that you can consider necessities, and I wouldn't necessarily consider necessities, but it's okay, and you can have those. If you want to do, paper goods, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to afford paper goods, but only after finding, what are the most important things to live a proper life.
Mm-hmm. But there are definitely areas where there's contention where a husband may not understand that a shaitel is a little bit closer to necessities than luxury than some other things.
Right. Certain things are not, if she doesn't have a shaitel and she needs a shaitel.
Yes. Or a shaitel that's decent enough looking that comes into a firm life necessity, and worthwhile to have a conversation to explain that.
Correct. Right.
Okay. So another question that came in is, what are some of the expenses that couples seem to argue about, and how do you have a conversation around that, or compromise on that, or work together through that?
What are expenses that are, sorry, say it again?
What are expenses that couples seem to argue about, and is there a way to talk through it or compromise on those?
Right, okay, absolutely. There are, I would say different things that spouses argue about would be, luxuries for her or him. Like, she wants to buy new clothes, and he doesn't understand why she needs new clothes. He wants to buy a new gadget. She can't understand what he needs it for. Clothing for the kids, extracurriculars for the kids. A new car would be an argument. Is there a way to compromise? Absolutely. What I do with my clients after we make a budget of the absolute necessities and working on getting rid of debt or investing in the future is we have something called flow money. I also call it free money, and it's money where it's put aside, allotted to each spouse. Let's say sometimes it could only be like $20, sometimes it's $40, $50, depending on what that couple can afford. And that's money that you can choose to spend on whatever you want and however you want. And if he wants to do it on a cup of coffee every day, when he leaves to work, that's on him. And she can't say, we can't afford that, and why did you spend money? And if she wants to do it with going out to eat with her friends, there's no reason why she can't use that money. There's always a compromise on what you want to use your flow money for. And it's not like shouldn't be an argument between the two.
I've heard that referred to as shalom bias money.
Exactly. Shalom bias money.
It's just worth it just to let that person do whatever they want with that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And sometimes a couple will decide, a spouse will decide that I'm not going to use that money now. I'm going to save this money I'm going to save it up for the next 4 months, my blow money. So I'm going to build up $80, and then I'll buy something big. Yeah.
So going back to the idea of, go ahead.
I was just thinking, there was one time, another way that you can compromise it is that I had one of my clients. He felt like he needed his shirts to be dry cleaned every single week, which was racking up a bill of $20 a week. That's $80 a month, and they were about $75,000 in debt. So that's $80 valuable dollars that they could have been used to pay back debt. So when we discussed it and we sat together, the compromise was he realized he can't just dry clean his shirts for a more comfortable feel every single week, but we decided that once a month he'll choose 3 shirts that he's going to dry clean monthly. Another client wanted to join a running group, which was costing her $285 a month. We realized that she could only do it every third month instead of every month. And that was a compromise between the spouse that they both agreed on, where she got her way, but he also got his way. And they were able to save the money in that way.
So, I mean, that's what they had. Those people, those examples, they had a third party to kind of help them see things through. How
Correct.
about someone have a conversation themselves? What are some valuable tips in having such a conversation?
So when there's one spouse that seems to be more like doesn't want to talk about it, it's better when the other, like let's say the husband doesn't want to, like, he's in charge, he doesn't want to think about the money, doesn't want to think about the fact that they may or may not have problems. The wife should collect as many proofs of income as possible, and they sit down together, and she shows him how much money they're making. She shows him how much money they're spending on needs and then on wants and then on unnecessary things. And she shows him the things that, as together the two of them want. They're not always the third party necessary. A third party is very, very helpful. But if the wife or the husband is strong enough to, to talk about it comfortably and see it in a way that the other spouse can be understanding to it, it can work as well.
So that's the sort of the initial conversation. When we're talking about a specific new need or luxury or necessity, and one spouse wants to have that, how can they talk about it? Like what might be a way to bring it up rather than just going out and buying it and then having the fight afterwards?
Right. So, for example, what we do is we do something called a sinking fund. A sinking fund is where we save money for things that we want, and it could be anything. So, for example, my husband 2 years ago mentioned to me that he wanted a certain set of Sfarim. I don't remember the name of it, but and I realized he really wants it. There's no reason why we shouldn't get it, but we can't actually spend those $400 tomorrow for it. But we could get it, I would say, in about 8 months. And I saved up money. 8 months. We both knew about it. We both knew that we were going to spend the money on it. We just needed a little bit of time. And there's a conversation that you can have. I know I want a new sheitel. Every month we put a little bit of money towards my sheitel fund for my new sheitel. And as long as there's a conversation about it beforehand, and you both know where the money is going and for what, it can be easy and it can be comfortable.
So that was great for your husband that you appreciated his want or need for those Sfarim. What if the other spouse really doesn't understand it, whether it's coming from a gender issue or a values issue? Like women sometimes don't understand why someone would need another gadget, or a guy might not understand why his wife needs another coat. And so it's like in that particular example, you understood his need, but sometimes they really don't understand the need. So how might someone bring that up?
So I would suggest using the blow money concept, where your free money is for you to choose what you want to spend it on. If it's on manicures, which, some husbands cannot understand why you want to spend on manicures, but it's something that she enjoys, there's no reason why she shouldn't. It's her free money to work with, her $8 a week to work with. That's her call. And he, it's her money, so he can't decide that, no, that's not where the money should go. You should choose that money to go somewhere else. But this, all the blow money, sometimes you might need more or less money depending on the option of the need. But both spouses need to remember that the first goes the basic necessities, then goes the home, the food, the tuition. Then goes the investment for the future, which is, if we don't have any debt anymore. And then we work with the luxuries.
So how do you determine how much would be in this category of blow money?
It depends on how much money this couple is making and how much of their expenses, of the absolute necessary expenses.
So is it a sort of a formula, or is it also like a little bit of a conversation? I'd rather spend a little bit more now than save.
Sure. It is.
Some people,
it's
value.
It depends on how much the money the couple makes and how much money the couple spends. But we first have to. Sometimes every month it will be different. And sometimes the money will be more per couple just because they have more money to work with. It's not necessarily a formula, but it should be a conversation every month, and every month it does need to be edited depending on the needs of the month. If Pesach is coming up and we know that the wife will need more spare money for new clothes, they should maybe put a little bit less money towards that month to be able to buy the new clothes for Pesach.
But to build on that, sometimes some people feel that I'd rather live in the now than in the future. I'll put aside less than one spouse feels like, I'll put aside, we should put aside less than the other spouse feels, how might they have a conversation around that?
Okay. Well, what we do is we kind of calculate the future. Like, let's say we need to know that in 18 years, we would like our daughter to get married. We'd like to have enough money for her wedding in 18 years. I'm just giving a very general example. So how much money do we think a wedding would cost? Dividing that amount of money per the 12 months of the year, dividing by 18 years. After that, you see what the extra money to work with.
Mm-hmm. That's all if you have one daughter.
That's only if you have one daughter, right? So that's why the money goes a little. We got to work with. That's not the only thing we're saving for. We're saving for the daughter's wedding. We're saving for bar mitzvahs. We're saving for retirement, seminary, multiple things we're saving for.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Feels like no end.
You never really want a couple. A couple will never. They'll have to always think about when I speak to them. I try to get this point across. Do you want? There was one time a couple who she was insisting on buying a new pair of sneakers for her daughter. Now her daughter had sneakers already. They weren't amazing sneakers, but they were doable. They weren't the certain sneakers that would go with this type of sport. So I kept telling them this concept of, do you want to sacrifice the beauty of your daughter's wedding for the sneakers she has now? Do you want to sacrifice the fact that you can't buy a house yet, your money for a down payment, but now pay for her ballerina lessons? What do you want to do in the future that you're not going to be sacrificing for now? We have to always remember our values and our goals, and then after that, the luxury should come in.
Is it possible that sometimes when people have these discussions, they realize that they do need to make more money and it can't just work with the existing budget?
Absolutely. There is something that's why absolutely. Sometimes people come to me and they don't actually make enough money to even cover even the basic necessities. So we do have to work with other ways to make more money. I always tell people not to be embarrassed to do jobs that are not, not a lawyer and a journalist type of job. Sometimes you do have to be the Uber driver and you do have to be the babysitter for this extra income. It's not always fun, but what are our lifelong goals? What are our lifelong values? Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm. That sounds like it's, but also on the flip of it, let's say they decide that the wife has to put in more hours, they have to talk also about how the rest of the household will be compensated or worked through. So there's much more than just say, we need to make more money. There's other things that we have to consider as well, and that has to be part
Absolutely.
of it.
Absolutely. This last week I had my client. He was telling me I'll work overtime every single night, and I'll wake up early and I'll go to work at this and this time to make sure I get all the overtime I can get. And his wife was sitting there, and she was pregnant. She's pregnant with twins, and they have 3 kids at home. Are you sure? Are you sure your family's okay with that? So we have to decide maybe only twice a week work overtime to make that much money. The other time, you're not just dropping your family for the sake of money.
Yeah, you make the money for your family.
Right. So to see, is this worth it? Is this worth it? He wanted to get out of that within the next half a year. I think you might have to wait a little longer than that just so your family could survive.
Mm-hmm. Another question that came in, what are some expenses that are considered to be needs that are actually luxuries? So we touched on that a little bit. Maybe you can add a little bit more to that list.
Sure, absolutely. Many people in the firm world consider a car lease a need. No matter what, we all get a car, no matter where you live, no matter how much it costs. We need to get a car, we need to get a van. A car lease is extremely expensive over a lifetime, and it's never really yours. It is a constant rental. You're paying, I actually did the math with one of my clients a few weeks ago, and we realized that in the past 9 years of them leasing a car, they spent over $75,000 on just one of their cars, not both, they have 2. Just one of their cars, not including gas, not including insurance or extra maintenance. It was just on the 3 cars that they had traded in 3 different times. The statistics that show that over a couple's lifetime, over a couple's marriage of 60, 70 years, they'll spend way more than over $1 million on their car lease. A used car, buying a car with cash is the cheapest way to go. Having money for maintenance on the side is also a money saver. So a car lease is a luxury that's enveloped in a need. Certain grocery bills, certain grocery habits are luxuries. Paper goods I mentioned before. Extracurricular activities are luxuries. Sometimes, depending on the income of the family, bottled drinks, seltzer, water, sodas, those are luxuries that, we have tap water. What are you buying water for? Certain brand names of clothing. Many processed foods are luxuries.
So that would also, like the processed foods, was kind of going with how much time is left in her day or his or their day to make food.
Right.
So
right.
Sometimes it's a trade-off.
Right. We've come down to kind of like a science in my home, where I realize that certain food that you don't have to make it. So like I always make my challah. I'm not going to buy challah because it's about $4 a challah as opposed to $1 for 12 when I make it at home. But there are those times where I absolutely don't have a minute, and I will spend and I will indulge in the $25 on challah for that Shabbos, knowing that it's a luxury, but knowing that I didn't have time, so I had to spend the money on it. And that works. But most times I realize that sometimes, even so, like the processed foods don't take as much time as you think to make as we've set it up as.
Mm-hmm. There are also those that spend a lot on guests when they can't afford, and I think that's something to have a big conversation around.
Absolutely. I just told one of my clients a few weeks ago also, for the next month, eat out. Don't invite guests. Try to eat out at your mother's house. So when they live next to their mother, try to, eat at home alone. Sometimes, someone said that I love having guests. I can't not have guests. So we went down. It's like just for the next 3 months, twice a month have guests instead of 2 meals every Shabbos.
Or perhaps make potluck. Or they bring
or potluck.
And there are creative ways to have some of the luxuries without paying for them.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I mean, if you like to travel, then possibly get a job that has more travel in.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of things could happen.
Right.
And there's always, I have my story of like we needed a new bookcase at one point, and we hadn't saved enough, but we needed the bookcase. The old bookcase just didn't work anymore. And then just one day someone called and told me that she was selling her bookcase for this really great price for exactly what we had saved for. It was like Hashem wanted me to have this bookcase. Yeah. Like we don't always have to have the money. Hashem has other ways of getting something. But nonetheless, you still have to be living in this world. Hashem does these wonderful things for us often, but not for every single thing that we think we need right now.
Right. And I just want to add to that, jump on that the budgeting somehow, and I can't really, I know how because we're being organized, but somehow creates more money than you thought you had. When you budget and you budget every single item, it creates more money than you thought you had. I was working with a client, one of my first clients, like a few months ago, told me that I'm like, you need to create a budget separate from your bank account. He's like, why? I can see it clearly. I open my bank account and I see my budget and I see everything there. I see everything that I've been spending money on. So it's like, okay, let's go check it out. And we opened his bank account and we saw that there was an order from Amazon that said $68, another order from Amazon that said $43, an order from Bingo, the grocery store, $300. And I'm like, well, what was that Amazon order? And he said, I don't know. So, and she pipes in, and the wife pipes in, and she says, oh, that was, I think we ordered a new set of knives and something else. And I'm like, what's the other Amazon order? She said, that was a new coat for my daughter. You spent $65 on a coat. And they didn't really know what their budget was, but they didn't really know what they were spending the money on. But, just because the items were there, the $300 Bingo order didn't make it past 3 days in their fridge. It was just, so when you budget and you organize it, you suddenly realize how to schedule your life in a certain way, which creates money that you didn't know that you had because you were wasting it on non-essentials.
Definitely. And if you also make your grocery list from standing in front of your groceries, you won't buy things you don't need.
Right.
So there's lots of those kind of budgeting ideas. So let's go back to talking about these kind of conversations. Many times there's a big difference between the men and women about what they think are important items, and that's where some of these many conflicts come up, and they turn into fights. And as a matter of fact, the studies are showing that money discussions or fights is a contributor to several types of divorces. So it's important to know how to have these conversations? What if one spouse really doesn't want to budget?
So, yeah, money is definitely one of the top leading facts of divorce. That was actually one of the things that scared me most many, many years ago. Even though we had a very happy marriage other than that, it was just something I didn't want to grow to be bigger at all. And I happen to be the one in our family that's more of like that math and charts. I'm into that, and my husband hasn't barely ever seen our budget, but he knows that I do it, and he knows how much we have to organize. It's okay if one spouse is leading and one spouse is following, but like happily. But as long as they both know what's going on. Like I make our budget list, and I make sure my husband knows. He has to tell me what he has to add in. I tell him try to avoid this and this month because it's going to be a harder month for us. And we both are in the know of what's going on. But I'm definitely the one that's writing down the list and writing down, organizing. But that's because that's like more of my passion and not really his.
What if one is much more spontaneous and doesn't like to be told that I can't or I must, and it becomes an issue of contention?
Well, I think that's where, again, the blow money would. Oh, sorry. Yeah? Do you want to say that again? I didn't hear you.
So the one that's more responsible can get very frustrated with the one that's more spontaneous. Is there a way to have a conversation around being spontaneous, not only on the blow money, but just like, let's just go out for dinner tonight kind of thing, which is that in the blow money? Like, how would that work?
So depends on what the income of the couple is. Sometimes, when they're really, really tight, or like temporarily for the next 4 months, you have to be really tight just to get rid of a certain amount of debt. Usually that's short term. Once you get over the hurdle of the debt, there is breathing room. And we should allow the spontaneity, and we should allow that free spirit spouse. That we shouldn't block out that personality. And you put in your budget. We have in our budget, we have date night budget. We have a certain amount of money allotted to date night. Every month is a little different depending on our expenses, the rest of our expenses, in addition to our blow money. We also have, just miscellaneous. We have a miscellaneous column. We have like $300 for miscellaneous. And that's for, I forgot something or I want something. It goes into that budget. So it's money that we allotted for random things, and we can both use that slot for whatever it is. But it's got to stay. It can't be, it's got to stay under the $300, and it's got to be, it's not thought out. We don't know exactly what the item is until it actually happens, but it is thought out that we're going to have something that will come up that one of us will want to buy.
Can you share what some of those line items are? Like you said, miscellaneous, and you said date night. What are some of the other columns?
So most of them are just necessities. So we have our mortgage column, we have our tuitions, multiple tuition columns, the maintenance column, the electricity, phone bill, internet, life insurance, health insurance. What else? I can't remember like the basic ones right now off the top of my head. After that, we have, depending on the month, we have different things. We have our date night, we have our blow money, we have the miscellaneous one. Some months we have a clean lady one, some months we don't. We have like clothes shopping. So I know that I'm going shopping Erev Pesach for one of the days. I don't know what, but I do know that I don't want to spend over $300 or depending on the year, depending on the month, how much money we're going to be willing to spend on Pesach clothes shopping. So that area of like the extra slots, which are not strict to necessities, but it is a smaller area, and that kind of goes with the leftover money that you have after necessities.
I'm just thinking, like, to live by a budget can be very difficult. Like, to go shopping for 4 kids with a $400 budget means you probably end up going to more stores in order to find something cute within the budget. So that could add much, like, just stress or frustration or whatever. So how might the spouse who's not doing the shopping, in this case of clothing, I would imagine it's the husband who's not doing the shopping, how can he support his wife to the stress of going to a million stores and until
I don't know if she should necessarily go to a million stores, but she just doesn't know that, there are certain stores to avoid, temporarily until we can indulge a little bit more pricier items.
Nonetheless, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Now, nonetheless, it's so much easier to find cute things that cost more, and just go to one store and just pick up four dresses, especially if all the neighbors have that, which is a whole different conversation. She can come back from shopping really stressed, and like just I went to 4 stores until I can find something that was cute enough for her and sneeze enough, and we can afford. And some men may respond in different ways. What would be an ideal way for him to kind of acknowledge that she's going through this? Even though he doesn't want to hear her fetch, what might he say to kind of make it a little bit more palatable?
The husband should definitely be more understanding and understand that it's hard, but he should also remind her, and she should remind him that this is just temporary, this is short term. Reminding them back to what our values and goals are. Our values that our children need to be dressed and then to the nines for the Yom Tov, that they're going to be staying home most of the time, that we have chances are they'll get dirty, or are our goals that we want our children to live a happy life with the comforts that we absolutely need, and the extras and that vacation that we want to go on, in the next few months. What are our priorities and what are our values and goals? And understanding that this is also short-term and temporary. And maybe next time you'll be able to buy the more expensive dress from that one store that you're going to go to.
So this question came in. My husband is a miser. He doesn't want me to spend on anything. How can I help him realize that certain things are really in the category of necessity and not luxury?
So my husband is a miser, you said?
Well, that's the word she used.
My husband is a miser. That is a tough question. Usually when we have the budget, and he has, and the misers, and I wouldn't call myself a miser, but I do call myself more of a saver. When I make money, I don't want to spend it or give it. I mean, we give tzedakah and we give what we need to give, but it definitely took me a longer time just because naturally I'm more inclined to be a saver and to be, I guess, more miserly. But he should have the husband who's Margolin in this case, and the wife who's more of a spender, which might not be a very big spender, but it might be spending on necessities. They should both be allowed their indulgence. He should be allowed to save this month. As long as he gets his allotment of money that's being saved, she can have the remainder money to spend on this item that's what she considers necessity, and he doesn't.
Oh, okay. We can that's a nice compromise, that he can save what he wants to save and she can spend what she wants to spend.
Correct.
I guess once you see
that actually works very well. Usually spouses do. There is usually a concept that it's not necessarily husband or wife, because I don't think it's a male and female thing where the husband is the saver and the wife is the spender. It could be more often than not it's like that, but in my case it's the opposite. I'm the saver. I don't think my husband is a spender, but he's not a natural saver. And we both get to indulge in the month, in the budget. I get to do my saving. As soon as our income comes in, I save the portion that I was, allotted to save. And he and I both have the money to spend with the remainder.
Mm-hmm. I guess seeing the numbers in front of you so that you can afford more than he might, in this case, he might think, and so that's why it's okay to spend a little bit more. He doesn't need to save all that.
Absolutely. When you have a budget, I said it before, but the money somehow creates itself. You see new money that you didn't know you had once you clear up certain non-essentials, and once you write every single dollar down. You do have $10 for this, or you do have $100 for this other thing. Even while you're saving money, and even while you're getting rid of debt, you still have this remainder money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this other question came in. My husband thinks we don't have enough money, so he works really long hours. And how can I tell him that we don't need all that money? We'd rather have him around.
Again, making a budget. If they're making the budget and she's showing him, you're making this amount of money, this X amount of money, and we're spending only, and whatever it is, much less than that. We have these, let's say, $2,000 remainder that we don't necessarily need, even while we're saving. I'd rather have time spent with you.
Or the kids want time spent with you.
Or the kids want time spent with you. That's more important than the money at this point.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of the call. Do you have any final thoughts to wrap it up?
Some people, even if they don't, like, even if they're scared to budget because they think we're not nearly making enough to budget, we're not making close enough to even our basic necessities. Even those people who think that they're not covering it should still budget, because you'll find somehow either you'll find that you actually did have the money you thought you didn't have by being organized and being diligent and being a little cheap, or you'll find that, Taka, you don't have that money. But how much money do we actually need to fill in the remainder expenses? So we only need actually $400 as opposed to the $3,000 I thought we needed. We only need an extra $700. And once you budget, you can be realistic and see how many hours you need to work more to make that money, what new job, what can I sell to make a remainder. But as long as you're budgeting and being strict about the budget, which, by the way, if you do it month after month after month, it becomes a joke. I still make my budget. It takes me about 2 minutes every month to do. Make a little change here and there, and that's it. Once you budget and you have that visual in front of you, it's great. it's amazing.
Have I someone reach you to talk about budget?
Yeah, sure. They can call me or email me. I have like that worksheet I want to send you. That page I shared on the website. It has my phone number and email. They can also Facebook message me. That paper. My Facebook name is Chaya Margolin. That paper that I shared, it has like just 10 tips to get you started if you don't want to call a financial coach. If you want to just text me if you have any questions, I'm happy to be here as well.
Okay, so the paper, the sheets that Chaya is mentioning will be on the website at adai.org/past-events, and there you'll see the recording and the accompanying papers of this call, and then the recordings of many other of our previous calls as well. So you can find that at our website, adai.org/past-events. If you have any other questions for Chaya, you can send them to her directly. Her email will be there, or you can send them through us, and perhaps we can answer them for you in the future on some future call or some other mode. So once again, thank you, Chaya, for this very important information. You make budgeting sound realistic and manageable and so important. And the conversation that someone might have around that is also realistic. It may not be easy at first, but it does get easier. And thank you. And
yeah, thank you very much, Deborah.
All right. Thank you, Chaya.